My name is Theresa Wilson. I am the zoo director.
My name is Katie Hess. I am the curator of animal care.
I am Ann Holzman, and I am the conservation specialist here at ZooAmerica.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome to a very chocolatey edition of the Rossifari podcast. That's right, y'all. We are coming to you from yet another brand new to the podcast facility. We have ZooAmerica joining the Rossifari family this week, and I'm really excited about this. So ZooAmerica is a small but mighty AZA-accredited facility that is in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and is actually a part of Hershey Park. And you'll hear more about how that works in the interview. But I grew up in the Harrisburg area, and so even though I was more frequently heading down to Baltimore for the aquarium and the Maryland Zoo, ZooAmerica was actually the closest AZA facility to me, and I spent a lot of time there. And then even after I left the area, I would take miles there. As a matter of fact, ZooAmerica is the first zoological facility that my son ever went to. And he, as just a little baby, fell in absolute love with the roseate spoonbills there. And that was so fascinating to me. I don't know what it was about them, but he really didn't pay that much attention to any of the other animals, a little bit to the fish in the bear habitat. But other than that, it was just, but those spoonbills, they just sucked him in. And it was so cool to see that. So yeah, I have lots of great memories growing up at ZooAmerica, and got to share, some of those memories with my son, and now memories that I get to make with them through Rossifari, and it's awesome. And I have to tell you, there's kind of a funny precursor to this interview. So as you heard, we'll be hearing from three different people at ZooAmerica, one of whom is Theresa, who is the director of the zoo. And Theresa and I met at the AZA conference in 2024. Actually, that's a lie. We both managed to do the whole conference without bumping into each other. And we managed to take the first flight of our two flights back to the Harrisburg airport without bumping into each other. But when I got to my connecting gate, I noticed this woman looking at me. She was clocking the fact that I was wearing a red panda hoodie and had like 30 different animal pins on my backpack. And she was like, "Were you at the AZA conference?" And I was like, I was. Who are you? And it turned out to be Theresa, the director of ZooAmerica. And we had an absolutely fabulous conversation and just got along so well, and immediately agreed that she needed to be on the podcast, and we were going to do the thing. But the problem that we ran into is that when I'm in Harrisburg, I'm incredibly focused on miles, right? I try to really, if I'm on stage, I'm supposed to be thinking about drums and not tree kangaroos. I sometimes fail at this, but that's what I'm supposed to do. And if I'm recording the podcast, I shouldn't be thinking about, parental things that I need to tell to Miles. And when I'm in Harrisburg, I am focused on Miles and not on the podcast. And so what would happen a lot is I would get to town like Sunday night at like 11 p.m. and be like, "Oh, I'm free while Miles is in school tomorrow. I should email Theresa and be like, hey, I might come to your zoo in like 12 hours if you want to do anything." Y'all, I swear I did this multiple times. And Theresa would usually respond like 2 days later and be like, yeah, dude, I was out of town. Can you be a little more professional? No, I'm kidding. She was actually super kind and professional. But this happened for an entire year. And then I ran into her at the AZA conference this year in Tampa. And I apologized profusely and said we were absolutely going to make this happen. And I was intentional about it this time. And so now we have an episode to share with y'all and hopefully the start of many. I had a really amazing day at the zoo. You're going to hear all about it in this interview. But yeah, for a small facility, they're doing a lot of really cool stuff there. And so we talked about some of the animals there, about their enrichment programs, about their conservation efforts to a very heavy degree, because it's very important there. And it's a really good time. So I'm going to stop talking about it and let you listen to it. So here is my interview with some of the team at ZooAmerica. Enjoy. We're in Hershey, like you said, and like this is part of like Hershey, like Hershey Park is right there. I can see a coaster from where we're sitting pretty much. Okay, I'm lying. I can't actually see a coaster, but you guys are only listening, so you don't know that. But yeah, so I'm so curious about so many things here, and there's so much to talk about. But the first thing that I'm interested in is just how does that work? Like it's a zoo, but it's part of the park, but it's not part of the park. How does all that work?
Yeah, so we, our parent company is Hershey Entertainment and Resorts, and you can actually come into the zoo if you want to just come to the zoo for the day. Today, right now, for instance, Hershey Park is not open, so you can come, if you wanted to come to the zoo, you can come in through the zoo entrance. But if the park is open, you can walk across the nice bridge that goes over Park Avenue, and you can come visit the zoo from Hershey Park as part of your admission pass to the park.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Not a lot of parks have that going for them.
No.
Oh, very cool. So are there any, I'm curious if there are any, like, I don't know, advantages, do you think, as the director here and someone who knows a lot of other zoo directors, we've been chatting a lot. And, does that give any advantages? Does that give any weird kind of disadvantages? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think we have a very unique situation, just like every zoo, right? We're all set up differently. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people maybe don't know about is like when we talk about what is our legacy as part of our company is we help to give back and help the kids thrive at the Milton Hershey School. So we work closely with a lot of them. I think I showed you that mural as you came in. So I don't know how many companies or just in zoos are part of something that's so much bigger. And Milton Hershey set that up a long time ago when he, started this whole town. I think also for some of us, it's very unique that like we can go work at a concert one night, and then the next day come in and take care of animals. So we have a very big collaborative partnership. I can go work at a hockey game and work under food and beverage. I've done that. I just worked in retail. You just worked a concert the other day, right? Like we get
what
to
concert did you work?
I worked the Hosier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of, obviously we can go to the park. We have, different perks that we offer. We have a lot of collaborations. Even sometimes some of our big events, we might collaborate with like Hershey Company or Penn State Hershey. So there's a lot of community partnerships, which is nice. And it's good to elevate the zoo. We'll bring animals and go talk to employees up at the hotel or the Hershey Lodge. So just, getting what we do out is, even to people who wouldn't be your typical audience, I'd say. And I think that's a unique perspective we have is people that wander over from the bridge might be like, oh, is this a ride? Like they're not knowing that they're actually coming to a zoo necessarily or intentional. But that I think is a different audience that we can leverage and try to elevate kind of like conservation and educational focuses.
Yeah, that is very cool. I'm all about trying to get the zoo world to non-zoo people.
I think it's really fascinating when you can build those bridges and, you know, sometimes like even just through like viral content and stuff, you have the ability to reach people who don't know what an animal is that you have go viral or whatever. Is very special. So that's really cool. And I know that, you know, the park is popular. A lot of people come through. So that's really cool. Yeah. So how much chocolate do you get when you work here? That's the real question.
So I was to say, we, again, for a lot of people coming into Hershey, they don't necessarily, we try to make it like one-stop shop. You know, you're coming in, you go visit the gardens, you go visit the chocolate world, you come to Hershey, it's all one, right? And that's how it all started. It was all one. But then later on, they branched off. Hershey Company does all the chocolate, and then Hershey Entertainment Resorts does mostly everything else. So we do work with them, the Hershey Company, and we are allowed to do different things. So, for example, Twisted Gravity was the new ride launched this past summer, has like a lot of vibes of like Twizzlers and things in it. So we are able to use that. And a lot of our properties have like candy and things. And we get, you know, we just did our costumes weekend, like fun, like come and dress as different animals or whatever you want. And we were able to hand out Hershey candy to the kids. So we do have a good like collaborative partnership. And yes, we
get all the leftovers.
We do get all the leftovers.
They bring some leftovers.
The actual of the question. You're being like, I'm the director and I have to, let's talk about synergy. And you're like, yo, we get candy.
We do.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, we do get
that. That's really cool. Yeah, I expected to find just the largest keeper staff out of any zoo in the country here, and that was not the case. But I thought y'all were just living on your Hershey's every day. No, but I do love how you have all of that, like you were saying, just the ability to bring in different people and to connect with your non-traditional zoo people. That's very cool. Now, it is a North American wildlife park, so everything here, for the most part, is focused on North America, right? But I do understand that there's a new animal here.
There is a new animal.
So explain to me about the new animal and how that happened and how that fits into the goal of what we're doing here.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Please join me for the Nature Disturbed podcast, a podcast about the good, the offensive, and the confusing parts of the animal kingdom, from the sewers of Florida searching for alligators. Oh no, did I forget to put the bins out? To the surface of Mars, investigating the possibility of life beyond Earth. Sorry, I had some bubbles lodged in my throat. I said, to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, all while interviewing scientists about their research along the way. Do you like comedy, whimsical storytelling, and learning about the natural world? If not, then you'll hate the Nature Disturbed podcast.
Yeah, that's actually a great story to tell, because for a long time we had American alligators, which are a hallmark species of the Southeast. But as a lot of zoos and aquariums have, sometimes you have limited spaces, right? We had limited space to be able to carry an adult alligator till its full life. So we used to have a kind of a trading system that we would have with another facility, but then that stopped. So then there's a gamble of like, well, we could get one, but then where are we going to put this animal when it gets to that size that we can't? So, or let's think outside the box, and maybe we can get an animal that we can have its whole life, but still tell some of that story. Mm. And that's where Ori, I told you earlier, the dwarf, Cuvier's dwarf came in. So yeah, we're trying to make sure that we can still tell these stories and highlight some of those animals that are hallmark to these areas, but maybe let's think more about the animal welfare and the animal well-being part and just make sure we can do it the best that we can. So that might, this is their first big animal. We have some in our ambassador collection, sure, like a European legless lizard that we can use to talk about. So again, it's not that we've never had some of those, or Madagascar hissing cockroaches.
Sure.
but this is our first big, animal on public habitat that people are like, wait a minute. Because I think it's important to be realistic as what we can do, right? How can we still maintain our animals to the best, high standards and everything. So this, we might, just be looking at things a little differently. And we've been, Katie and I have been working on collection planning, every year, maybe every 6 months, depending on it, because we're just trying to refocus and just make sure that we're doing the best that we can to provide the best habitats and experiences for our guests.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really smart to, even if you have a collection philosophy like that, like North America, you can stretch and you can find ways to keep that goal while, like you said, worrying about animal welfare, worrying about what will get people in and interested. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, my collection planning friends, but a relative of the red panda lived in North America, in Tennessee. And there's actually the Western North Carolina Nature Center. Same thing. They are all local species, but they have red pandas because they were in that area. So hypothetically, if there was a zoo in Hershey that wanted to get red pandas, you could argue that it would fit. I'm just saying. Then you could partner up with Safe Red Panda and get these cool follow bracelets. I'm just saying.
Well,
floating that into the world.
Anything is possible, and we're always trying to think of, let's just. It's hard, right? Sometimes, not sometimes. Change is hard. Always, right? But then sometimes you'll look back and say, but if we never tried that, we would have never known. At the time, it might be challenging to have those conversations, but sometimes we don't know until we're out of it, or we're sitting back later going, wow, we did that. It was, it seemed hard at the time to do it, but we made it work. Or you came up with all these great ideas that you didn't think you were going to have until the idea presented itself. So
yeah, you and I, we were having a conversation earlier about institutional knowledge.
Yes.
And how important that is. And it is. It really is. That being said, it can also be a problem because you can end up in a place where you don't look for new ideas or something like that. And, I, as my listeners know, I do this show. I've been doing it for a decade now called $1 Million Quartet. It's a big part of my life. And normally we all do it. We're all the same people that do it. We go around the country and do it together and we do the thing. And it's fun and it's great. The production I'm currently doing has half of the people have never done it before. And I'm amazed at the things that they have found that just never crossed any of our minds in the last decade. So as good as the institutional knowledge is, every once in a while, it's really great to have someone new or some new idea or get red pandas for your zoo or something random. And, and not pushing anything, just to say. But but seriously, it's cool to think about the fact that new thoughts, new ideas can take you in new places that feel a little scary. And then you're kind of oh yeah, this is pretty special actually. And the reason we were talking about institutional knowledge earlier was because it seems like there's a lot of that here. There seems to be a lot of retention here. And that's a good thing. And it's something that a lot of zoos are struggling with right now. So I'm curious what your perspective is. You've been here since 1990. I'm curious what your perspective is. Your badge is too small for me to know how long you've been here, but I'm hoping a little while. But I'd love to hear some perspective on why ZooAmerica is good at retention.
Yeah. Do you want me to
let
start?
you guys? Yeah.
I think because we are a smaller zoo and we're kind of forced to get to know each other, whether we like to or not, because we're working so closely together every single day, that it just becomes a close-knit group. So yes, I think that a lot of retention is based on we're a small zoo. You get to work with all of our animals in the collection. We don't have an area where our float staff, we're primarily float staff and they get to work with everything. So it's not just elephant keeper or carnivore keeper. You get to work with all different taxa here. So not only that, but I think also the people really help our retention here and just having that close-knit bonding and getting to know each other and becoming friends. And it's really something special here. I think that plays a big part in my perspective. I've been here for 7 years.
That's like a rookie here. Basically.
I know.
Really
It really is.
That's really cool.
But I started in college, and then I can't imagine leaving. So that's kind of like my retention story of I started here, but I'm planning to stay.
That's really cool. How about you, Anne?
I have been here over 30 years. But I also say I grew up here. So some of the people that I originally worked with have now since retired, but we still stay in contact because of the impact that we've all kind of had on each other. In fact, the person, I'm focused on conservation projects, but the person who started many of the conservation projects here at the zoo, Tim, I feel so fortunate, even though he retired from the zoo, I still get to work with him because he's working on our butterfly project. And I agree with Katie. Like, I think it's a very special place. I think we've been so fortunate. I know for a short period of time, I had to leave here for just like a few months at one point, like after college. I went to a place and worked at a horse farm for like a couple days. I was like, wow, this just isn't the same. It doesn't feel the same. The people are it's a very special place. And it is, I agree too. I think having the new people coming in with new ideas, it helps me a lot of times when somebody says, well, let's look at this approach instead. And maybe not because, as Theresa said, change is hard, but sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I just never really thought of it that way before. But yeah, we have definitely had some of the people who retired most recently. There were 4 in various departments, and we realized that they had like over 140 years of experience here at ZooAmerica specifically. So so lots of knowledge, but again, lots of knowledge from people coming in that are newer too.
Wow, that's really incredible. Very cool. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So we've talked about some, organizational stuff, but I get yelled at if we don't talk about animals enough. So I want to talk about at least some of the species here. And we're talking about the fact that we're it's North American. And so we have to talk about my favorite animals here, who I got the incredible pleasure of feeding today. So who wants to tell my listeners about the wolves here?
I'm going to let Katie because she's one of the trainers.
Makes sense.
Sure. So we have 3 gray wolves here. We have a boy, Twister, he's 10, and then 2 girls, which are actually sisters, Hazel and Freya, and they are 6 years old. They have different color combinations, so they're gray wolves, but Twister is definitely more white cream. Hazel and Freya are more darker chocolate. But they get along super well. I think the most common question we get is who's the alpha? And so I like to talk about how in the wild, there's not like one true alpha. There's kind of a hierarchy where there's multiple at the top and then multiple at the bottom. And so here we don't have a true alpha. We have Twister, who is definitely bold at some points, but can be a little bit of a scaredy cat. But he will put others in their place if needed. And then Hazel is very bold, and she likes to show off her boldness to the other 2. And then there's sweet baby girl Freya, which is the wolf that I train, and she is definitely the bottom of the totem pole. But she is working to come out of her shell, and it's really fun to see her sometimes if the other 2 are trying to take her food or something like that during a training session. She'll nip at their little legs and be like, no, this is my food. And I'm like, good for you, Freya. You got this, girl. But yes, they are just so unique, and it's so amazing to see each of their different personalities because they are so different, even though they're all gray wolves.
Mm-hmm. One of the funniest things to me is that those personalities were very evident while I was down there. And I took some pictures of them after I was done feeding them. And guess who I got the close-up of, who was like right there?
Hazel.
Guess who was close, but a little further back?
Probably Twister.
And guess who was looking at me over a bridge when it was photo time? It was Fred, right?
Yeah.
And it was so funny to see that. Although when food was involved, like you said, not braver, twisted, they all can't get braver. But the thing that blew my mind the most, so the feeding was taking like basically meatballs and tossing them and calling out each wolf's name and hoping they didn't try and steal each other's food. But the thing that blew my mind was that just like dogs, they jumped and caught the meatballs. I know you're nodding your head, but my brain was not ready for that. Feeding a wolf was a cool idea. Playing catch with a wolf? What? That was insane. That blew my mind. That was so special.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of acrobatic tricks in the air. If it's going a little bit too far, they'll still jump and land on their feet. I very rarely see them either like miss it or get hit in the head with it. It is funny, but it is very rare because they're just so athletic and so amazing at catching it.
So the fence comes up and then goes out like over the habitat a little bit, right?
Yes.
And so I was throwing it over that, obviously. And Hazel kept coming up like under that. So I kept having to throw it behind her. And every time, jumped, twisted, caught it, landed. I was like, I was blown away.
It is impressive. And she was likely coming closer to the fence because we do our training at the fence. So we want them to feel comfortable enough to take food off of this long stick that we put through the fence. And then we can get them to come to certain areas. They even do sit or down. Eventually, we'd like to do voluntarily or cooperative injection training with them too. But she's definitely the most bold with her training, eating, and behavior.
That's awesome. I'm curious. So dogs are wolves, evolved from wolves and all of that, and we know that. And I completely knowing that you respect the animals, all of the things, but like, is it harder because they're just big puppies is what they look like and act like, frankly. We saw a big Stretch, we saw a big Yawn, we saw all the things, right? Even got to see pooping followed by the little, like the covering it with a couple of blades of grass thing, And so I'm genuinely curious, is it harder taking care of an animal that is so close to a domestic animal that you either have or know or love or whatever? Does that ever bring in a challenge, or do you ever just like want to like go in and smooch them, even though you wouldn't,
Oh, all the time. It takes a lot of restraint to do that and say, okay, what would actually happen? What could happen? But I do hope that somebody said, oh, big Yawn, or oh, big Stretch, because that's a must. If you see that happen, you must say that.
So this was actually, I mentioned this down there, but this was so funny. But Theresa was talking to me right when the Stretch happened. And like, I did not want to interrupt the director of the zoo that I'm here for, Rossifari, to go, oh, big Stretch. But it was so hard not to. Right? And I was like, mentally, I was going, oh, big Stretch. Yeah, I know you better now. You would have understood. I'm like trying to make a good impression. So funny. So the other animals that I really wanted to touch on here is the hockey team. You have some Hershey Bears here. So talk to me about the Bears.
Well, we have two black bears, Chief and Murphy, and they are rescues that came in. We've had them since they were young. So we sometimes will utilize the Bears. Actually, the Bears, Hershey Bears, the players come over on occasion and do some interactions. They've like put pumpkins out for our bears and things like that. When we won the Calder Cup, we all went down and like took pictures of the Calder Cup with the bears. Like, look, Chief. I don't know that they really cared about it, but we were excited. So yeah, there's a nice, Hershey Bears are longtime AHL history. So yeah, we have a good connection with them. I think they just redid their logo though, so it looks a little more grizzly-like. So we're like, I don't know about a grizzly bear, even though we are set up for that. That's a whole other ball game.
And talk about the habitat a little bit, because I really love that area down there.
Yeah. So that habitat was put in 2000. It's about a 13,000 gallon pool in there. It gives them options. For the guests, you get to see them on land on the side there, or you can see them swimming in the pool. That's probably one of the favorite things is when they get in the pool and come over. And it's funny watching kids when I walk down and sometimes it looks like they're interacting with the kids at the glass. These bears are very engaging with us as keepers or guests in general. They're not scared. But again, that's also, they're not scared, right? So think twice about that. But yeah, it's a great habitat. They have a lot because of them being black bears. They do like to sleep out in their little tunnels out there. So a lot of times you'll come and you're like, where are they? They're probably sleeping in the now. And there's 2 tunnels, but we were chatting about this the other day. The one was there when the habitat was originally built, and then we added this other one that's more, I would say, natural and more rock built. And they like to fight over that one. So you'll see them shoving each other out of the way, like who gets this spot first? First one out. So yeah, it is fun though to watch them engage. So it is we enjoy it, and we have the interactive, like how tall are you compared to a bear, for guests to see as well. So
yeah, it's so cool. And again, it goes back to I was making fun of you for it earlier, but it's synergy. You've got these bears and then the Hershey Bear hockey team, and it's very cool. I like how much integration there is with all of the different aspects of that. And don't worry, Ann, we're coming to you for conservation. I promise. The whole second half of the interview is going to just be you talking to me. But I'm curious because y'all aren't the only animal game in town. Because there are some pinnipeds that do stuff in the park as well. Yeah. And I know that they're not part of ZooAmerica. They're actually part of a company called Ocean Connections, which I have a friend that works at, but at a different, I think down in Tennessee. But I'm curious, having a different, animal care situation, is there more of that synergy? Are you guys in competition? Do you want to, how does that work? Yeah. Do you guys help them out? Do they help you out? Yeah, tell me things.
Yeah, it's actually a very collaborative partnership. We actually have a program called Water Friends that we have going on right now, actually. So it's a guest can come in and they do an experience with the otters, and then they go over and do an experience with the seals and the sea lions at the park. So,
that's really cool. So, I like that. Water Friends.
And then we collaborate with them on all of our camps. So I think all ages except for maybe preschool did go over and experience, animal training or watching a presentation over there. We utilize them for their training. They're very, I think we were chatting earlier, it can be intimidated for somebody who has a lot of years of animal training under your belt. You're like, oh my God, they're going to watch me and we're going to screw up everything. But, again, we're our own worst critics, and, they're great to work with. Jackie is amazing. And at one point when they were getting their pools done, they were actually housed over here in a temporary pool right outside my window here. And it was great because, they couldn't get over here to watch them all the time. And they're like, just, stick your head out. So, you go over to the copier room and just look out and you're like, oh, they're doing great. Oh, they're doing okay. It was like enrichment for us, right? Just to see them over there in the winter while they were redoing their pool. But yeah, it's a great collaboration and partnership that we've been able to leverage on both ends. I think, they actually take their leftover fish. I mean, we were talking earlier, we get fish from the country club, some scraps sometimes that they can't use. And then these guys, because these animals live in water, they have very, very strict guidelines on what they can have. But our otters can have things that have just a little bit of a torn fin. It's not a big deal. So it's a nice thing. So reducing waste, that we can help them out with.
Nice. That's really, really cool. And, some of the animals that we're talking about here, especially otters, are curious and interested creatures that require a lot of enrichment. And so I'm curious to hear a little bit about like what kind of enrichment programs are going on here. And I'm guessing that's going to be a Katie question.
Sure. Yeah. So we kind of recently, just maybe 2 years ago, started a new revamp of our enrichment program. And so we are doing behavior-based enrichment, previously called goal-based enrichment. So we think about the actual behavior that we want to elicit and then work backwards of what we want to give that animal to make that behavior happen. And so we do our mammals collectively at least once a day, and then we have a schedule for birds 2 to 3 times a week, and same with like reptiles, because it might take them a couple days to even find the enrichment for a reptile.
Yeah, that's right.
So we want to make sure that they have time to actually explore it. But yeah, they, depending on the animal, it may be more intricate than something else. So our otters are very playful. They have a high metabolism. They're just constantly active. Even ours are 17 years old, but they are still super active. Anne and I are actually their primary trainers, so we get to see them and their energy levels. And so they are very playful with their enrichment as well. But it's also tricky then, because if you have such a high functioning animal, and then you want to mentally stimulate them as much as possible, it can be almost tricky to come up with things that are difficult enough for them to actually work with their brain. And so it's really depending on the species and the individual animal as well and how they interact with it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's very cool. I volunteer at Aquarium of Niagara when I'm home, and I started off volunteering with pinnipeds and penguins, and now I've moved on to fish and invertebrates, which also includes herps. Mm-hmm. And I spent so much time making pinniped enrichment and coming up with these cool things and penguin enrichment and really thinking through the process. And now I'm like, the eel doesn't care. Like, we have to give it enrichment and maybe something will happen, but like, does the eel care? It's like you said, it might take 3 days to even know that there's enrichment in there. And right. It's been really eye-opening to me to just be like, we're still doing the thing and you do it correctly, and we sometimes put too much thought into it, probably. But it's like, all right, here are some, chicklets. What do they need for enrichment? Really? But we're going to try. We're going to try. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. And now it is time. You've been waiting patiently, but Anne, the spotlight is on you. Gosh. Because one of the big things that I'm excited about here, and one of the things that we spent a lot of time before doing the interview today looking at, are the conservation projects going on here. And there are some really cool ones. And what I'd like to do is touch briefly on the rats.
Okay.
And then dive into butterflies. Okay. So let's talk about the rats a little bit first, though.
Okay. And I just want to say, what's so cool about this place is ZooAmerica is a smallish zoo, but projects for conservation have been going on for quite some time here, like going back to early 90s. And then we're sitting in Theresa's office, and I could look out the window and I spy, I see different birds flying by. And what I'm often looking for is peregrine falcons, because we were part of breeding program back in the early 90s. And for me, it's the full circle of seeing peregrines that are flying past the zoo or sitting on the silos right next to the zoo. It's simply amazing.
I mean, like, I did that.
It's really cool, because we did have a bird that was in part of the breeding program. He was originally a falconry bird. Then he was an education bird. And he was like a grandfather to birds that ended up nesting. The parents nested on the Susquehanna on a cliff. So we're just like, he'd use Murray, and you'd be like, Murray is the grandfather to, and this is where these birds were. You want the birds to go. It's fine if they're in the cities, on the bridges, on the high buildings and stuff like that. But like getting them back on the cliffs, like, it's just simply so awesome. So yeah, so I'm like, I'm paying attention to conversation. I'm also looking for peregrines out the corner of my eye. So that would be like one of our long-term projects we did many years ago, but like our newest project is with the Allegheny wood rat. And that is a collaboration. Pennsylvania Game Commission is immensely helpful, and they're our guides through this whole process. We also end up getting every 2 months, Katie and I will jump on a call for the wood rat working group. And it's really awesome to see the different partners that are involved there, from like the state agencies, but also other zoos that are involved, like Maryland Zoo or Toledo Zoo or all these other zoos that are coming on board with this project. We feel really fortunate because right now we have 2 individuals, and the idea will be to hopefully have these 2 individuals produce some pups, and then the goal is then those pups go into the wild. And some other zoos have had some success. We're keeping our fingers crossed that hopefully we'll have some success maybe this coming spring, if not maybe over the summer. But it's a very exciting project. It's one that once you start diving in more, you realize, wow, this is a species that was found throughout lots of parts of Pennsylvania. I mean, you need to be, I guess, doing a bit of climbing to find some of the rocky boulder areas where they do like to exist. So those biologists from the Game Commission and people who are helping them are really just scaling up crazy places sometimes to try and find them, and also supplementing them with food, because they were so dependent on chestnut trees. And when chestnut blight went through and the trees disappeared, then they have to refigure, hey, we can eat this other mast, maybe we eat acorns, but that just changes everything about the natural history with that animal. So they might have disappeared different places. And other thing too that is a big concern is certain areas where they're found is raccoons, which may end up moving into that area. Raccoons can carry a roundworm that completely wipes out Allegheny wood rat. So there's multiple things that have to be happening, because the biologists are also doing some baiting to try to make sure the roundworm is not present in the raccoons. And so we're excited about the project, and I know we're really hopeful, and that maybe we'll be able to get some pups produced and then help with that project and get them released. And they probably, I'm figuring they probably might not even be released here in Pennsylvania, because we're working with partners in Virginia and Ohio and Indiana, and again, different various zoos that are coming online are all even Greensboro is one of the newer ones. And so it's a very exciting project. So.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I grew up in central Pennsylvania. I did not realize that there are these, because these are not if you're listening to this and you're picturing what a rat looks like, they're a bigger than a mouse looking thing. No, these are large. So I got to see the male in particular was out, and very cute, by the way. We were talking about the fact that sometimes names are challenging for people, and rats are intimidating a lot of people. I'm like, just call them mini capybara, because it's literally they don't have the coconut fur, but they look like a mini capybara. Cute little face, long snoot, all the things. I didn't even know these guys existed. As an animal lover who grew up here, it's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, and if people want to see them, and I know you said you were familiar that Elmwood Zoo, they have one that came into us originally, and we knew that we found out through genetic testing that the male and female we got originally, but they came from an area where they were in a shed. The whole shed was going to be torn down. Thankfully, that landowner realized I need to contact the right people within Virginia. When they were trapped out, they didn't know how closely related, but they said, oh, those 2 individuals, we're not going to want to breed them. So we had to find another home. And Elmwood said, hey, we got some space. And we're excited because we see on social media, we get to see Templeton, see him interacting within Richmond, or see how visible he is. And so people are learning about the Allegheny wood rat story when they visit at Elmwood.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I say hi to Templeton the next time I'm there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll be there later this week, I believe. So yeah, very, very cool. But now we have to get to what we spent a whole lot of time on today, and it was so cool. But let's talk about this butterfly project. And I want you to start at the top. Explain what kind of butterflies these are, all the things. I'll ask questions if I need to, but you can just riff. You do your thing. You're good at this.
And I can have Katie jump in if I miss anything, because Katie helps on this project as well. Nice. So we work, I would say we're fortunate to be able to work with the Eastern Regal Fritillary butterfly. What is so very special about this species is we are within 25 minutes or so of their their home. There is only one place in the East that you can now find this species of butterfly. There is a Western species, but this subspecies used to be found throughout a lot of the Northeast. If you look at, in fact, I know you, John, you saw the map earlier. You range all the way up through New England, going, south to Carolinas. I think some people said they thought it existed too in Georgia, and it is not found anywhere except at Fort Indiantown Gap. And if you want to see them going west, you got to go all the way to Indiana. There's this really big gap. And when you look at this map, you're like, wow, historically they were found like all through Pennsylvania. And the reason they exist is because of some amazing biologists, and I'll give a shout out because we got Virginia, Erica, and Kaylee, who are just the best of the best. That Katie and I work very closely with them. We have the rearing lab here at ZooAmerica. They work in the rearing lab, but they also are the ones who are helping to maintain them out at Fort Indiantown Gap with, and they will give credit over and over again to the reason they're there is because the military. They work in conjunction with them on keeping the habitat what it needs to be for this species. And the specifics for them, and they will say over and again that it is ecosystem-based restoration. So it's not, you are trying to help that particular species of butterfly, but it's helping so many other grassland species. So the focus is pretty much for native grassland species of plants. The really important component, you need the right type of violet, which is found in like a disturbed soil. So all the things that the military is doing while they are being active, and that it's a National Guard training center, while they're out doing their different training, they are creating the right environment for this particular for the plants for this butterfly. So there's a special type of violet, which is called we call it sagittata. It is arrowleaf violet, and it looks like an arrowleaf. They also, of course, lots of different nectar plants. And then you also need warm season grasses. So out there, the specific that you hear them talk about all the time is little blue stem. So that is providing, and I know earlier you got to see the tiny, tiny little caterpillars.
Oh, we will talk about that. That was crazy.
They need to go somewhere be as overwintering as this teeny, tiny little caterpillar. And so the grasses can help provide like that habitat for them to go into that area. One of the things that is done besides, again, just the regular disturbance from the military training is they are also doing prescribed fires. So they are trying to maintain this habitat and they do rotations sometimes. I know they mentioned recently that there's one area where it actually is getting burned on a regular basis, meaning potentially even yearly. They also have to, because of what the military is doing there, they also have to be aware that sometimes fires just happen because of the training that's going on. But they also do have the practice of making sure that the habitat, you don't want the habitat to, again, successionally just get too old. It's going to turn into something else. You need it to stay as a grassland. And ultimately, again, when you look at the historical range, some of those areas that we think, we were just talking about this earlier, you think of Penn's Woods as there were trees everywhere. Well, there actually were some grasslands here in Pennsylvania. Grasslands sometimes, again, do depend on fires to be maintained as that particular type of habitat. Yeah, they're doing amazing things out there. The reason they still exist is because of all the work that's being done with the biologists, and again, due to the military really being on board and helping to keep that species there, and again, helping all the other grassland species that are dependent on that habitat. So
yeah, it's crazy to think that this entire population lives on a fort.
Yes.
Like, that's really amazing and ridiculous. But so let's talk about what happens up in that lab. And y'all, they're so small. we had to look at them under a microscope.
Yes.
I did not anticipate that. Like, I've seen caterpillars and they're caterpillars.
Yes.
You can see them and stuff. So I'm curious, just talk through the steps, but also how do you do this all with these animals that are so small?
So if you would have visited back in second week of August, is when you would have seen the female butterflies that come in from Fort Indian Town Gap. They're brought here by the biologists. We set them up so that we're able to feed them daily and then collect eggs from them. They spend, what do you think, Katie? Good 2 weeks before they start laying eggs, usually?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah. And then we are going to collect eggs. Depends on the year. Some years, and I think I'd mentioned to you earlier, like we did have a year, which was crazier, where we collected close to 20,000 eggs. That is not this year. This year, we're more at 7,000, a little over 7,000, because this year we might have like a little bit different priorities as to what we want to be doing, looking ahead, to next spring. And I'm excited about the idea down the road that we might, want to really ramp up production because we're working with partners, various places to try to get other essentially reintroduction areas ready. The habitat's probably at some of these places a good 3+ years down the road, but here, I think we're going to be able to do what is needed to raise these caterpillars and then be able to release them at these sites once they're ready. But essentially, what you got to see, John, was we're in a period of time where we are processing the eggs. We are hydrating the little Petri dishes every single day. And in those dishes, we are looking to see if we see hatching. And once we see hatching, when they come out, and I know you got to see a little bit of munching, when they come out of that egg, they've got to eat the eggshell because that is the only nutrients, the only thing they have to eat until the spring. So we're thinking probably till March or maybe April. That is what gets them through that overwinter period of time. And sometimes you talk nicely to them when they come out because they will walk away from you like, you need to get back over there because you see the little hole in the top, but you're like, here's the rest of the egg. You've got to eat the rest of that eggshell. But they do what they want to do. And you cross your fingers and hope that they're going to survive and make it through that overwinter. We have really refined techniques over the years. We started this project with the people from the Gap back in the fall of 2011, and there's been so many changes over the years, but we found a much better overwintering technique. And so when we put them, we have these real big environmental chambers that are set to a temperature right above freezing. And when we end up putting them in there, we're going to let them go from right now. There's a number of them already in there. They're going to go until probably maybe March, definitely April. We'll wake everybody up, and then probably we'll have to see. And what we're going to do this coming year, we'll probably raise some of them to a little bit later instars, past the first instar, and then we'll probably keep some and raise them to adult butterflies as well. So, but yeah, it was nice that you got to see some activity. It gets really quiet over the winter, and that's fine. That's when we do data and everything else. But yeah,
so for those listening, environmental chamber is a very fancy word. It's a refrigerator, right?
Big refrigerator.
Like that's what, if you've ever been in a commissary of the zoo or even just worked in a restaurant where there's like a commercial fridge, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
You said environmental chamber, and then you opened it, and I was like,
Yep.
Yeah. And there may be a little bit more to it, but if you're trying to picture this, it is a fridge. It's a big stainless steel fridge. And what do you put the populations in?
So they're just going into, so I'm thinking, okay, anybody who goes and decides to get some French fries somewhere and they need their little cup of ketchup. Yeah, that's pretty much what they're going into, that size cup. But what we do is we're putting little strips of paper towel in there, which again, even that has changed. Like, we did a study like, do they like little crinkly pieces or would they like little squares? And I know Katie helped with this, we run the numbers to see what is survival like, which one works a little bit better. And then we just keep adjusting every single year. So they like the crinkly paper. So
cool.
For whatever
reason.
Yeah.
And then you take your ketchup cups.
Yeah.
And you put them into Glad, like Tupperware, right? Like I know Tupperware is the brand name, but Glad, whatever, the storage containers.
Yeah.
And then this year, because another scientist found that they worked better last year for them. You're doing half in the Glad and half in Rubbermaid.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating to me, right? Like, I mean, it's a little bit funny, but it's also like, this is the hope of a species. And you're sitting here and going, does Glad make the better, sandwich container, or does Rubbermaid? Like, how is that a thing? That's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's fun because what I like very much about this project is we're always a year out. So we're doing something right now and we're making adjustments, and we'll be, again, talk to Katie in the lab and be like, hey, this is working, or Virginia might have an idea, Erica, Kaylee, like somebody be like, maybe next year we should do it this way. And we take note of those things and then we adjust them. One of the questions was, we didn't have anything major that we wanted to change. Even with raising the caterpillars, some years we've done violet studies to find preferences for violets. And we know that they like the arrowleaf, and we'll feed them that. They also eat wood violet readily, which is what we have all around the grounds at the zoo, and that's how we'll raise them. But we also, there's different studies. They definitely like bird's foot violet. So what we did, it was a qualitative study, not a quantitative, but we'd be like, here, you can have this choice. You want this, you want that. And we literally could see bird's foot, not always their favorite. They prefer to eat this. So this year we just decided, based on a number of years ago, one of the people in our lab even said, I'm going to try, we have extra eggs, I'm going to try this setup and put the a lid that just snaps a little tighter, and I got some better results as far as how many overwintered, how many survived it. And so we're like, okay, let's just try it. We'll see what happens. And then so I know next year, depending on what the results are, once Kaylee runs the data, we'll adjust, and maybe we'll set them up slightly differently the following year. So I really, really like that part of this project, because at some point, the hope is that we're going to be in kind of bigger production mode, and that we do have potentially might have assistance from we have some different universities that we work with. And so we'd love to be able to have lots of caterpillars survive for a couple of these other spots. Because again, as you had said, the fact that they're just at the gap, that's amazing, but we really want to have them other places too, because you never know if, as things go on, with climate change and things like that, you don't know what could happen, at that one particular site. So we need to get them other places. So
yeah, one site is never good, even if it is one site that is protected and fenced in and has a bunch of biologists at it. It's just scary. So how many sites are you currently looking at?
At the moment, and we keep all our sites kind of quiet because
sure. I'm not going to ask for any locations. Can you give me the exact coordinates?
It's exciting because of the different partners. People start to know about this species, and then they're like, hey, we might have the right habitat. And so the biologists from the Gap were able to visit another site fairly recently, last month or two, and we're kind of pleasantly surprised, because we're like, oh, they're not as far out as as they could be. You think, oh, maybe it might take 5 years to get the violets established, to get the right nectar, to get the little blue stem. But they ended up, I know there are probably at least 3 who've kind of reached out to them. And then there's one that we've been working on for a little bit that we're just kind of fine tuning, that we're hoping maybe within the next, I'm hoping within this next year, maybe, that we'll be able to do some more release there. So it's exciting.
Yeah, no, that's a really exciting time too. Yeah, very cool. What is the lifespan of these butterflies?
So while in the lab, we do not keep them through we basically have a quota for eggs now. We didn't used to do that. We sometimes would say, okay, we'll bring them into the lab, see how long we can keep them alive. We definitely had some individuals that lived, 80 plus, maybe 90 plus. I don't remember the exact, the top number. When you're thinking about in the field, you're going to see, in fact, what they'll do as biologists, they have at the Gap, what they are going to do is a different type of survey where they walk a line. It's called a pollard walk. And they're surveying from the very beginning of May until they'll go to the end of October. Now, they're not expecting to see them very, very beginning or very, very end. But they start seeing the males, I want to say it's like in June. They do, for anybody out there who really likes to see butterflies and would like to be able to get to the gap at the beginning of July, usually 2 weekends, they do open it up that people get to come and see the regal fritillary there and then get to see other wildlife there, which is super cool. By that point in time, they pretty much are starting to see the females emerge. So the males emerge first, and then the females are emerging. And then so the females are hanging out a little bit longer. I know they said that they have just last week still been seeing some butterflies. That would be all females. The males would have passed away before this point in time. So so for some species, like these guys are living a little bit longer than compared to some of the other butterflies, but they're not like a monarch who migrates really far or anything like that. These guys are have a smaller, definitely a much smaller home range. So.
Yeah, very small. Fort Indian, I guess.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, for perspective, because you were talking about like how tiny. Didn't you always say like their first end star is like it's like a grain of rice?
Yeah, half a grain of rice.
Because I was thinking, we were talking about like these ketchup containers. I'm like, oh my gosh, people. Like, hopefully, people aren't like envisioning like a woolly bear sized caterpillar, and no, these are tiny.
So to give the perspective to you guys listening, when I looked at one of the ketchup cups, there were eggs. There were eggs that were hatching, and there were multiple caterpillars there. And they're also small. I couldn't tell which was which. There were just a bunch of black dots is what they were. And then we put it under a microscope, and the eggs, which were gorgeous, by the way, they look like seashells, looked like seashell-y looking eggs. And then some of them were kind of seashell-y looking eggs that had a black dot on them. Even under a microscope, it was a bigger black dot, but a black dot. And that was the caterpillars that were hatching. And then there were the caterpillars that looked like caterpillars, like not woolly, but caterpillars, under a microscope. But then again, as soon as you move it, it looked like a really thin grain of rice, maybe not even that. Like I could identify what caterpillar I was looking at under the microscope when I looked away from the microscope, but I could no longer tell that it was a living, moving thing. It was just, when I took biology courses and stuff, and we looked into microscopes, you were doing it at like the cellular level, and it was like pretty and cool. I think this was the first time in my life, though, where I was like, holy cow, like I'm now looking at an entire small world that makes sense to me. There's an animal, there's an egg, there's a hatching. This is really cool. And that's just how small they are. I can't believe that you can do like work and count these guys. And like, it's actually very impressive. And you were telling me that you can like just kind of look into one of the cups and know what's going on because you've gotten used to it, you know.
Sometimes, yeah. So if you look in the Petri dish, and I'm sure, Katie, you probably have this sense too, like you sort of can, and you said about the eggs that have a dark dot on top. Like sometimes you just look at it and you're like, now I definitely over time have had to wear my magnifiers. I have to look through a magnifier. I need the light. Probably did not need that back in 2011, but you kind of get a sense for what they look like. Wouldn't you say, Katie?
Yeah, definitely.
You can tell which dot is which.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it does. We joke about when you're processing a lot and you get towards the end of the day and you're like, math is really challenging. You can't. It's hard to count moving caterpillars in one of those Petri dishes, and so. But yeah, we try, and we are keeping track of individuals. Like we want the same female to be in the own individual cups because we'd like to track that stuff once we wake them up to know. Because another part of this is before the female goes back to Fort Indian Town Gap, it doesn't hurt her, but we do take a leg because that has some valuable information in it. We work with a professor, Dr. Blair at F&M, and she processes some of this for us for genetic purposes. She will look at disease components, look at, especially in the past has been for a disease called Wolbachia. And so that stuff is very valuable. So we do have and I'm sure you've seen this many times, is we got weird freezers around here. So there's a different freezer up in that lab because we have some different parts of butterflies and because it's valuable information. So
yeah, makes sense. Very cool. I love that. And it's such a fascinating, I'm involved in some conservation programs and projects and obviously discuss a lot of them with people. But a conservation project for a species that the population just goes away every year, that they just die out, really is an interesting spin on that.
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's very, very interesting. Super excited that you shared all that. And it was so cool to see all of that. It really was. Before we wrap things up here, are there any conservation organizations that any of you would like to give shout outs to?
I was just going to briefly touch on just one other conservation program that we do here is our bird banding. So we, in the local Hershey community, we put out American kestrel boxes and barn owl boxes. We also have Prothonotary warbler and bluebird boxes that we don't band, but we do band kestrel and barn owls. So we work with a sub-permittee of master bander. So shout out to Nate McKelvey at Milton Hershey School. So he's our sub-permittee bander. And so he helps us to band the chicks on for kestrels and barn owls. So we have total banded about in the 700s for kestrels since we started the program back in 2012, which is a pretty significant number. And I think each year we're hitting right over 100 kestrel chicks each year recently, and we're kind of growing each year too. So I think that that's really important as well, just in our very local Hershey community to be able to do that. And then all that information gets entered into, I always say, the BBL. That's not what you think it stands for, but in the conservation world, it's Bird Banding Lab. So the number on the band goes into there. And then if you were ever to find a bird with a band on it, or if you're a hunter and you kill a bird and it has a band on it, you can look on the Bird Banding Lab and be able to see where that bird was banded and kind of where it came from. And where was the furthest one that was recorded from us?
We have had kestrels that have shown up, actually after one was banded a few years ago, ended up showing up in New York State a couple weeks later, which was kind of odd. It's an amazing tool to use because we had a barn owl, adult female who was in a box when we went to check the egg status, chick status, and we saw, this female's banded. We came back out and we were able to actually get a hold of her. It was very easy to get her, look at the band, just put her right back in the box. She was completely fine and went on to raise young in that box. She's a bird that actually came from Virginia and was between 4 and 5 years old. And that's really good data to have too, because barn owls, it's really tough for them to get through their first year. So to know that she was that age, where she came from, was really, really helpful. So the recovery sometimes are a dead animal, but sometimes it's not, and it is good info. So
yeah, sometimes we're able to actually capture the parent, so the adult kestrel or barn owl that is still in the box with the eggs, and we're sometimes able to put a band on them too. So
yeah, and John, I know you're connected to this in a way too, because our boxes are made by zoo campers. And yes. I know you have a connection with a zoo camper, and it's just a really special thing for these kids to understand that they are making this positive a difference. They're part of the puzzle and they're making a positive impact. So because we've had success with Prothonotary warbler boxes, because these boxes were made by these kids, they were put out in the swamp area where these birds are found. And so it was, very, very very
Yeah, good job, Nancy and friends, but mostly Nancy. Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And then it is time.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
So what you got that's gross?
I mean, I was going to say, I remember one day walking down by the wolves, by the way, actually, and just, you're talking to guests, whatever it was I was doing at the moment. I don't remember because, of course, that's not what the focus was later was, and I just had a bunch of bird poop just dripping down my face and looked up and, there's a black vulture up there. And then he just decided to poop right down. And there was a lot of that. So I had to kind of finish up what I was doing. And of course, keeping my composure as well. And walked away to go, I think I just had keeper, t-shirt or something on. So it wasn't like I was dressed like today. And, maybe that would have been a more fun story. Into this, but,
vulture poops.
It is pretty gross. And I've witnessed the vets getting lots of poop. At least for snakes, you can kind of see it coming, right? You're like,
not always, though.
But you're right. Sometimes they're sneaky. Birds, that's another one. Certain birds, like hawks and stuff, they get ready, they're lifting their tail. You're like, or if you're doing a program and you're talking to a kid, you're like,
right.
I'm going to turn this so it doesn't end up in your face. But yeah. You guys could probably share other poop stories.
That reminds me, just last week, we were doing an exam on our cottonmouth, and he shot some of his urate muskiness all over the vets and the professional handler that we had visiting for the day, right into his eye. So he just needed to take a minute, but it was all good. But I think mine, I think I started to subconsciously get an eagle eye for just looking at poop, and sometimes rubbing it with gloves, rubbing through it, just to see if we've had an animal that got something it wasn't or didn't do exactly what we wanted to with the enrichment item. And so we had to find each and every tiny little piece to piece it back together, make sure it all came out. And so now I find myself doing it at home with my cat. So shout out Felix, my cat. I do sometimes go through his poop just to make sure. You never know. So it's kind of the weird quirks that we pick up from being here.
What do you got, Ann?
I guess after working with all different species for so long, you feel like you've gotten pooped on by practically everything, whether it be, again, holding the ambassador species and they decide to just, a desert tortoise decides to just let loose, and that's a large volume sometimes. I think just and all zookeepers understand the changing weather. Having to chip for me is chipping at river otter poop. And you're like, well, sometimes you just have to give up. You're just not going to get it cleaned up because it's just frozen onto the rock or whatever. But yeah, I think we've probably all at some point in time just had something really gross happen. But yeah, it's a fun job though. So, and I think we're willing to deal with it. Because it's just amazing, these animals that we get to work with. So,
absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you all very much for doing this. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Y'all, they gave me so much chocolate after that interview. Theresa had asked me what my favorite Hershey things are, and I said I love all things Reese's. And I thought I would get, some Reese's peanut butter cups. And maybe if I was lucky, I would get one of those little, king size packs of the eggs or pumpkins or whatever seasonal thing was going on. No, they gave me all the Reese's. They gave me Reese's Take Fives and Reese's. They did give me the seasonal things and Reese's peanut butter cups and Reese's Pieces and all the things. And Miles stole some of them from me, which is probably good, honestly. But look, I'm not saying that if y'all want to have me come do podcasts at your facilities, you should feed me. But I'm not going to lie. I really, really do love and appreciate the facilities that do that. And Hershey's, they've got a lot going on for them. Let's be honest. Now, but all joking aside, I'm not joking. That was incredible, and I'm super thankful for that. But I'm also thankful for all of the time spent and getting to shove my nose up to a microscope and see the cool caterpillars and these little things that are the future of this species. And it was a really amazing experience. And obviously, hanging out with the wolves was pretty fantastic too. So I am wildly thankful to the team at ZooAmerica and can't wait to collaborate further. I'll be back here on Friday with a Zoo News episode. But before I get going, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. And with all of that said, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.